Welcome to Grinding the Data. My name is Kevin Scott. I'm very excited to be here with you for another installment of the Expert Series. Today, I have the privilege of welcoming in Denny Carter, an analyst with NBC Sports Edge. I've enjoyed reading Denny's stuff for years. He's actually a very gifted writer. Could be using his talents in a ton of areas, so it's cool he's using them to add his voice to the fantasy football world. Welcome, Denny.
Oh man, thanks, Kevin. It's a great intro. It means a lot. I do enjoy writing. I come from a writing background, so it gets kind of lost in my everyday role, and it's still my bread and butter.
Yeah, no, it really is a talent. So it's awesome that, and we were just talking before we came on air about Denny's blurbs that crack me up sometimes. He writes for NBC some blurbs that are genuinely hysterical, even though they're very short.
Right.
This is the first time I've been able to do a pod with you or even talk to you face to face. So very cool. It's actually ironic. I'm sure we've talked face to face before because we just discovered about a year ago that we went to the same high school at the same time.
That's
Just
right.
didn't know it. Yeah, so that doesn't happen every day. But
What year did you graduate from Montreal?
I didn't. I left before graduation, but I would have graduated in '99. So I think you were
99.
what, 2001 or something.
I was 01. So
Okay,
you would have been. So you left after what grade?
after 10th grade. So yeah, you
Okay.
were probably in 8th grade at that point, right?
Right.
So we
Yeah,
didn't really have a chance to be in classes, but I was in class with your wife's relatives.
that's right.
My brother knew you, so kind of crazy connections there. I
Yeah.
have to say, just how about Montrose Christian School, right?
Have you seen where it used
I
to be
oh
lately?
yeah, it's crazy. And did you see that it was in the news today?
No. Why?
It was all over the news because of Ketanji Brown. What's her name? Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yeah.
She was during her process for the Supreme Court. They brought up that she had been on the board for Montrose Christian School for a couple of years, which I did not know. That was back in 2011, and apparently there's a big to do because it's a very back then it was a very hardcore, for a lot of people, right wing
Yeah.
establishment. So yeah, it's that she's coming under fire for what they believed. So
Interesting. Oh
yeah,
man, that is something.
yeah, it's in the news, man.
I
And then
gotta look into this.
yeah, Kevin Durant went there, so that's a little claim to fame. So yeah.
Yeah, he was there for like 5 minutes.
Was he there when you were there or no?
No, I'm
Okay,
way too old for
after you.
that.
Yeah.
No, I know everyone. Oh, you went to school with Kevin Durant. I'm like 9 years older than Kevin Durant.
No, you can't be. How old? That guy's got to be like 32 by now, doesn't he?
Is he? Oh, I'm looking it up right now as we speak. Yeah, I mean, I'm 38, so he's 33.
Okay, yeah, so he wouldn't have overlapped, but it would have been cool if he did. See
It
some
would have been. I was there when they started the basketball program.
yeah,
Like
when it
for
was
real,
then officially recruiting and all that, right?
Marvin Lewis was the first big name
Oh,
guy, um, and he went to Georgia Tech.
okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. Well, yeah, you have to check out that story. And, for everyone who reads about Montrose Christian School after this podcast, know that Denny and I, are
Oh man,
very unbigoted people, and, we love everyone. So
I'll have takes on that for sure.
yes, you will. You will be right about it. Before we dive into some bigger picture questions, I've been asking experts about, their views on, the 2021 season and so forth. I just wanted to ask you real quickly if you have any thoughts on the latest free agency or trade action, the Russell Wilson trade or any of these guys who have signed. Any thoughts on that stuff?
Oof. Well, yeah, we Pat Doherty and I talked about free agent transactions on the latest A Good Football Show, which you can find on iTunes and anywhere you can find podcasts. Also on the Peacock app, by the way.
There you go.
So we kind of summarized what we thought about those the big moves, the fantasy relevant moves. Talked about Christian Kirk and the possibility of him being underdrafted, being so, it's being such a hated and despised and highly criticized move that he could actually become something of a value, just target volume wise at some point. Part of me thinks that won't happen, but I would be open to looking at Christian Kirk as a wide receiver 3 or 4. If that were to happen, if people were to dismiss him as a bad signing, because
right.
the real football aspect sometimes does really color the way we look at it from a fantasy aspect, and
Definitely.
that's not always the best way to approach it, obviously.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do dislike the signing a lot. I think it was a
Yeah,
vast overpay, but
yeah.
yeah, I think who else are they gonna throw to? I mean, Chark's gone, and what do you think about the Chark signing in Detroit? Do you think that's a positive or
I, I no, I hate it. I hate it. I think it's terrible, terrible fit. I get why the Lions would do it. They have a lot of money to spend. He's a
Right,
downfield threat, and they don't really have one. But Jared Goff
Jared
doesn't
Goff?
throw. He's not an aggressive downfield thrower. He's not a good downfield thrower, except for maybe 1 year with Sean McVay
Mhm.
pulling the strings. You may know that Sean McVay no longer coaches Jared Goff, so uh, I quarreled with Detroit Lions fans for a long time on Twitter yesterday, which uh,
So
which
I
kind of hurt.
saw some of that.
Yeah,
That
it
was
kind of
funny
hurt
as
me
well.
because I presumably we're both fans of our high testosterone analytics king Dan Campbell,
Right.
and so I don't love arguing with Lions fans, but for them to say, well, no, Golf wasn't good downfield just because he didn't have a downfield threat, that's not correct.
That would be incorrect. Yes, I agree with that. That is very yeah, you should look up Denny's, feed for the Lions slander. That was very funny. Any
Yeah,
thoughts on CJ Uzoma or however you say that? I think he signed with
uh,
the Jets, right?
I mean, he's already the best Jets tight end of all time.
Right,
So,
yeah, yeah. Makes
uh, no, I mean, I think, at best he'll be like a desperation streaming option. I could see myself, touting him at some point in 2022, being like, oh, he saw 5 targets last week, and you can't do better on the waiver wire, or something like that.
yeah.
But
Makes sense.
no, I think the Jets offense has there's no real indication that it can be good for fantasy.
Yeah, it's hard because I really like Michael Carter and I really like Elijah Moore. I think if their line is gonna be better. They signed a bunch of guys on the line and, they have Mekhi Becton who'll be healthy, but it's just kind of one of those, like, can Zach Wilson be decent? That's the biggest question mark.
Yeah, that's a big question. Honestly, for him and Trevor Lawrence, I think there's a major question. Can they be viable? Like
Mhm.
like not great. We're not looking for great now. Okay,
Right.
I think that's off the table. But we're can they be okay? And I think that year two would obviously be huge for both of them in
Right.
answering that question.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the two biggest, like, running back signings, those guys splitting up, Edmonds and Connor, kinda each get their own your role
Yeah.
here?
Edmonds has 8 double digit carry games in 57 career NFL games. So
Wow.
I'm thinking that that's not going to happen too often in Miami. And if they do treat him like that, I don't know if he's the kind of running back who can hold up, with that sort of
Right.
workload.
Mhm.
Um, I think PPR wise, he could be interesting in an offense that will presumably be full of checkdowns from Tua, who is again not an aggressive or not a good downfield thrower. Doesn't have a big arm, so he now gets a coach from the tree. Shanahan tree typically likes to have quarterbacks kind of manage the game, little dump offs, little safe passes near the line of scrimmage, intermediate targets. That could be Edmonds' game.
Mhm.
I could see him doing fine, but I'm not super bullish on him. James Conner, on the other hand, yeah, I mean, he's going to be drafted like an RB1, so
Right.
you're not going to get a value. Like it's
Mhm.
not, it's everybody's in on the secret that he's going to see all the goal line carries, and he turns out to be a pretty good pass catcher out of the backfield. I think his upside is nice. I also think, unlike last year, you're not going to get any kind of value on him in redraft leagues.
Right. No, I agree. I do question with whether it's possible Edmonds starts seeing 15 touches a game. It's just a question mark, mainly for me, of how the new coaching staff wants to divide it up. But since he's from the 49ers tree, it's probably going to be, pretty split up. So,
Yeah, yeah, I think assuming that Edmonds is going to be like the 1A throughout is a pretty big assumption. And by the way, I'm sorry if you can hear my dog barking in the
no,
background.
it's all good.
Nothing I can do at the moment.
He wants to be a part of it. Well, I know you did a lot of study already, coming out of the 2021 season about positions. Did some writing about that. Just wanted to see your thoughts, as far as draft wise, or just valuation of the various positions coming out of 2021 into the season as we start thinking about drafting for this year. What do you think? What are the deep positions? What are the positions that you're going to be targeting in various spots of the draft? That kind of thing. Anything you want to share with that?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I'm a zero RB, radical truther, deranged in every way. And I think after I wrote about, receivers kind of having a lot of hard luck in 2021, a lot of opportunity to succeed, and just many of them who had high expectations, for whom we had high expectations,
Hmm.
didn't come through. So I could see, fantasy drafters sort of fading the elite wide receivers a bit this year, which would open up, some opportunity to take them, um, at a little bit of a depressed ADP. So that's obviously appealing to me. This, I think we do have to acknowledge that wide receiver is a very deep position.
Right.
It is. You can, I mean, look at, Cooper Cup, drafted after Robert Woods in the
Right.
fourth or fifth round of 12-team leagues. Like it's that kind of deep. You're not going to get a Cooper Cup ever if you play fantasy for another 50 years. You're never going to find another Cooper Cup who does
Farther from ground.
what he did in 2021. So don't mistake that for an every year occurrence. It won't be. But yeah, I think, I'll probably approach it similarly to how I usually do. As far as the depth of positions, you're always going to say here, people say, tight end seems
Hmm.
really deep this year. And here's the thing about tight end: it's never deep.
Yes, I agree. It's always just a few at the top, right? Does that make you generally? I don't know how many drafts you do personally, but is that or just is your advice as an analyst? Does it make you say, "I always want," or "You should always draft a tight end early," or do you,
Mm,
just? I know you do streaming podcasts too, so you
yeah.
maybe suggest that.
Sure. I think it depends on the savviness of your league mates,
Hmm.
and also it depends on how you want to build your team. I think if you want a kind of a more highly volatile team, you'll take a tight end, an elite tight end at their ADPs or right around there. Um, and if it depends on the scoring too, is it tight end premium, whatever?
Right.
Can you play tight ends in the flex? These are questions you'll have to know. Now I will say, and this sounds like a cop out, and maybe it is, but I will say that you should probably, decide, go in on the elite tight ends, or go all the way out.
Right.
Like don't try to play the middle ground. I've done that. We've all done that, I think,
Hmm.
at some point. Is you look at a tight end and, like, I don't know, the fifth, sixth, seventh round, you're, "Oh, well, I think that guy can match the guy who was drafted in the second round." And again, the thing with the tight ends, that never happens.
Right. I mean, Mark Andrews came close. He's the only one in the recent history that has jumped up in value like that. But yeah, usually it's like Tyler Higbee and Mike Gesicki that never really pan out, right?
Exactly. And a lot of times it's very frustrating. You have guys like those two guys you said, Gasecki and Higby, who ran all the routes, right? All the route participation. They were all the snap, participation, everything you could want a tight end to do. He's on the field, he's running routes in good offenses, and it still doesn't come to fruition. So even those indicators, which can be helpful in kind of guiding your way toward a viable starting option, even those indicators fall flat with tight ends very
Right.
often.
Yeah. So generally, you're saying you like to target wide receivers, maybe tight ends early. You like to wait on running backs is kind of an overarching strategy. How about quarterback? Where are you at with that as far as strategy goes?
Yeah, I guess it would depend. We're talking in March.
Right.
I'm thinking things will change by August, myself. But I could see guys like Lamar Jackson going a little later than he should,
Hmm.
after, because we are, as human beings, very prone, to remembering the last thing, right? To the recency bias, right? Like, Lamar killed my team last year. I'm not doing it again.
Right.
But there are many reasons to to look further into that and say, well, that probably won't happen again. Like the vast likelihood is for him to be more efficient, both as a rusher and as a passer in that Baltimore offense. So, I definitely would not dismiss taking a quarterback in, the first 4 or 5 rounds, especially if you're in a league where, and this is always funny when you're in a so-called expert league and you play a game of quarterback chicken, late round quarterback chicken, and whoever is the first to take the quarterback looks like a big chump, and so everybody fades quarterback until they become just ridiculous values. So if you're ever in a league like that, just be aware of that. Don't play chicken. Just take just take Lamar Jackson in the 6th and be done with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. As far as I don't know if you do any drafting ranking for NBC, where you go through and rank the players, the various positions. But even just for your own drafts, how do you go about ranking those players? Do you do player projections, or do you go off 2021 stats, or just go by feel? What's kind of your process there?
Yeah, I usually have a median projection and a high projection for for each player, and kind of depending on the kind of team I want to build, the kind of league it is, and the settings, format, whatever. I will I will either go with the median or the high. Honestly, the way I play fantasy, I usually go with the high projection. I usually swing for the fences and create a team that is either going to finish in the bottom half of the league or win the thing easily. Like
Right.
that's the kind of team I'm looking for. I'm not. A long time ago, I decided I no longer. I don't want to build a team that's going to finish 4th.
Right.
Like I'm not going to do that. It's either going to be really good or pretty bad. And so that's how I approach drafting.
That's cool. Yeah. I guess you do so much work as an analyst, writing up stuff and writing articles and doing research and that kind of stuff. Do you find that it's hard? I don't know if you in the past did play in a lot of leagues, but do you find it hard to even continue playing, or is it?
That's a good question, it's an issue. I have not been able to pay as close attention to my redraft leagues as I have in the past, like before I was a full-time analyst. That's okay with me because I actually, I actually enjoy analyzing the game more than playing it. And I know that sounds maybe funny, but
Everybody's got their thing, right?
that's the draw for me
Yeah.
for this game is analyzing it. Playing it is fine, I'll do it, but it's about analyze, trying to find the angles
Yeah.
to help you win and to help other people win. But yeah, no, it's tough. I had to cut down on leagues this year, and I still really wasn't able to grind the waiver wire the way that
Right.
you need to be able to do that in most leagues.
Mhm.
In your home league, office league, you could probably skate by without having to do that. But in serious leagues, man, yeah, if you don't dedicate that time, as painful as it, and Kevin, as someone who's in 100 leagues, right? I mean, to have to set aside that time to grind the waiver wire, it takes dedication.
Yeah, no, it really does. I mean, I've never gone over 50, but 50 is like a part-time job. I mean,
Oh,
it's 20,
50.
20 hours a week at least. And yeah, no, and I mean, I honestly think people generally have a bent. Like I really enjoy analyzing, or I really enjoy playing, and that's kind of where I'm going to put my. And for me, I really enjoy both of them, but I
Yeah,
like playing so much that
yeah.
it would be hard for me if I was a full-time analyst to give it up. But
Yeah,
it's
you don't have to
really
give it.
cool.
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
it's
you
really cool that
cut
you
back.
like it. Yeah, you like to analyze,
I
so
do.
it's
I
really
do.
great for you that you can do that, and them playing when you play is just for fun. I mean, you're not gonna be in high stakes leagues probably or
Yeah.
spending a bunch of money, but you're able to really help, others win like you're saying, so that's really cool.
Yeah, that's just, I guess, my personality because I like analyzing movies more than I like movies. Like
That's
that's
great.
and
You're a
music too.
Yeah, you're a thinker. I mean, that's the thing, to be a good author, that's kinda what it takes is think through every angle and,
Yeah.
the research side, and that's really cool,
So
so.
some would say I think too much, and I would have to agree.
Well, and the thing is, if anyone has not been following you on Twitter and they hear this, you definitely need to follow Denny. My first my first interaction with you and like exposure to you,
Uh-huh.
I think was about an article you wrote. It was like 69 ways to something about being an American or some
Uh,
hilarious patriotic spoof
yeah, 69 ways
that
to own the libs. Yeah.
to own the libs, yeah. And I mean, I was reading through that. That's my first exposure to you as an author, and I was literally in tears, laughing.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
funny.
no, and I reached out to you and said, "This is incredible. I have no idea who you are, but I love this." Just funny, very
That's really
funny.
funny.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I really enjoyed writing that. And here's the thing, Kevin, the follow-up to that book is on its way.
Okay.
I,
What's that
I
gonna be called? You know
it's
yet?
being edited as we speak.
Do you know the title yet?
Roughly titled "Owning the Libs Across America." Yeah. We're going on tour. We're
And
taking a
the amount the
nationwide.
amount the amount of research that a book like that takes, I mean, I can't even estimate. I mean,
Well,
just
here's
hours.
what you do. Here's what you do. You spend every waking moment online. You absorb all like the trauma of the world, politically and culturally and every other way, into your brain, and then you have lots of material to work with. And while it's probably not great for mental health, it makes for a decent satirical book.
That's yes, it really does make a hilarious book, and that's the thing. Like you are very well-rounded in a sense. Like if you consider politics and sports both being well-rounded, then you are. You know, you have both sides, and
It's
that's
funny.
why it's entertaining to follow you. So
Yeah, thanks. It's funny because I think there's this sense, not so much in the industry itself, but for fantasy managers, for players who follow big accounts, whatever, there's a sense that if you know something about something outside of football, you can't really be a fantasy football expert, so-called expert,
right,
right?
that's
Like,
true.
like how can you be an expert if you also know stuff about other stuff? And
Right, you're
that to
not
me
spending
is
every minute looking at this
it's
stuff.
always been a tremendous thought process to be like, oh, you also read books? Curious. You could have been grinding wide
Yeah,
receiver route
exactly,
data.
exactly.
I do
Uh,
that too.
It's very it's very true. Yeah, because I found that whenever I, tweet about anything, political, like,
Yeah.
I lose, like, 20 followers. Like, okay, I guess they don't want that content, so
Oh, oh, Kevin, look,
you know all about that.
you have to prepare. You have to mentally prepare for that sort of that backlash. I'm guessing I've lost somewhere in the range of
Yeah.
2.7 million followers
Yeah, no,
over
seriously, you probably have, like, every tweet you have, you get, like, 10 followers and lose 5. I mean,
yeah.
it's
I would have a Beyonce following if I just shut up about politics. I think.
it's probably true. That's great. Yeah, and you're actually working on another book now. We are just talking about that. Do you wanna tell people about that, or is that sort of just out of the box too much,
No,
or
yeah, no. Yeah, thanks. It's called Calling Sister Midnight. I wrote it in 2018 and 2019. My dog is still barking. I am going to absolutely flip a lid if he keeps barking. Oh my god. Anyway, it's called Calling Sister Midnight. You can find it on my Twitter bio. I've released parts of the book that I think will give you a good feel for what it's about. It's very bleak, very bleak story about basically social media addiction and VR, virtual reality addiction, leading to the end of the world
Hmm,
as it does. So and it stretches. The story stretches from pre World War II Germany to the 2040s. So about 20 years in the future, and tracks a bunch of different characters. Anyway, you can find it at callingsistermidnight.online.
yeah, I was reading it yesterday. I was telling you, I really liked, your writing. It's
Thank
very
you.
entertaining and interesting, and, yeah, I think it's gonna be do you plan on actually getting it printed or just keeping it online?
I mean, that would be the dream.
It's a
God,
dream, yeah.
for someone to be like, "Hey, this is good. Would you like it? Would you like it in hardback?" Or that would
Yeah,
be cool. But
like a
uh,
book.
I will make it available in some ways. It's the longest thing I've ever written. As far as I can tell, it would the whole story, and I haven't put the whole story online, but the whole story would be like 600-700 pages in a
Oh,
novel.
wow.
So I'm hoping I'm
That took you
hoping to
some
get that out
time,
there.
and that wasn't even during COVID lockdown. You actually made time for that.
I
Yeah,
did, and that let me tell you, uh, writing a book, it takes a lot of discipline. I
man.
mean,
I
holy
like
cow!
to write, and I've been like, "I wanna try to write a book," and I'll write, like, a page, and, like, "Yeah, I'm good." It
It's
is
Kevin, it's so
intense.
hard. It's like you have to really like adopt a mindset of like, yeah, like some days I'm gonna write 700 words, which is
Mhm.
not a lot, but it's something. It's
Right,
something. You know, you're rolling that boulder uphill, right?
right,
And sometimes you'll get on a roll and you write 3,000 words and it'll feel great. And then
right,
sometimes you'll really struggle and you'll only write 5, 6, 700, but you can't feel bad about yourself, because if
right,
you feel bad about it, then you're not going to get back to it. You know,
right.
then you're going to say, "Oh, I'm struggling. I can't." Yeah, and one more, and if I could offer one more piece of advice for anyone considering such a horrible undertaking, um, is to not be so picky and so precious about when to write. Okay, you're never going to be, and I had to overcome this myself. You're
You
never
have
going to
kids.
be in an ideal situation. You're never going to be like in a cabin in the woods
Right,
by yourself with a typewriter and a nice little warm cup of coffee. It's not happening. You know, that you never, especially if you're married, if you have kids, whatever, a full-time job, that's not happening. You have to write at the weirdest times, right?
right.
You have to wake up early. You have to stay up late. I mean, you don't have to, but it's the way to do it, right?
Every time, yeah,
If you have an hour during the day where you're not doing anything, you go right, and that's really hard. It's really difficult, but the perfect opportunity to write is never going to come up, so you got to make it.
yeah. No, it's good advice for the aspiring writers out there. And I was gonna say that's what I said, you have kids. I mean, I can't imagine, being able to write 600 pages with little kids around, so good for you, man, that's amazing.
Yeah, well, that is tough. I wrote my fantasy football books before kids. I now I'm blanking on their names. Oh, how to think like a fantasy football winner and how to think like a DFS winner. I wrote those before kids, and let me tell you, that was way easier to do.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. You've been at NBC for, like, a year now, is that right?
Yeah, about a year. Yep.
Yeah, so congratulations on that. I was gonna say, for us who want to work in the industry one day, you are an inspiration. So
Oh, thanks.
I'm happy for you. I think you're deserving of that role. And just wanted to ask you, so far, a year in, what's been the best part or hardest part about working full time in fantasy football?
Worst part is working with Pat Doherty. I think is no, I'm kidding. Pat and I are like two peas in a pod. We went to the Super Bowl together,
Oh, awesome!
and did some podcasting there in a studio setup in the convention hall in LA. It was
Did you have to like buy space, or how does that work?
well, I suppose NBC did buy
Okay,
space.
they already had the space for you.
I was told to get on a plane and go to Los Angeles, so that's what I did. And when I got there, they had everything set up. It
That's
was
awesome.
very very cool, very professional. It was, I mean, a real high, like a real career highlight situation.
Yeah,
I would love to do it again at some point, but yeah, it's been cool to wake up on work days and say, well, I have to write about tight ends today. I have to prepare for a podcast on DFS slates, right? They're like,
mhm,
I'm going to write about kickers this morning. That's it's not bad. I'll say that.
yeah. So overall, it's been really good.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. No,
That's
it's
awesome.
it's it's great. I mean, it is a lot of work. I do think you can, in this situation, you can sort of get lazy a little bit, um because you've made it to a certain level, but I keep trying to challenge myself, and I always offer this advice to younger or up and coming fantasy writers is, to answer the questions that you have on your mind. So
Mhm.
like, just for instance, like, how does Mitch Trubisky signing in Pittsburgh affect Deontay Johnson and/or Chase Claypool? It's a great question, and honestly, I don't know. I don't know how it affects them. if you can put in a really good faith effort to figure out how that the Trubisky under center could affect them, and write about it, and present an argument for either, good, bad, or somewhere in between, people will recognize that. And people, let me tell you something: if you have the question, other people are going to have the question. I try to keep that in mind, every day as an analyst.
Yeah, that's great. What would you say, either personally, professionally? It can be about your any aspect of your life. What's something that you've learned this past year?
Oh man, you know, I think one thing you learn as a full-time fantasy analyst is how to sort of manage your time and not get burned out, because you know covering 32 teams, uh every player transaction, every happening, every injury, that
Mhm.
the potential for burnout is very high, and there's a very good chance that at some point you're going to say, like, my brain can't handle anymore. So being able to tap out sometimes, um, will keep you fresh enough to keep going and to keep producing good work.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I mean, everybody can produce work, but is it good?
Right.
And that burnout can really harm the quality of your work. Really bring that down. So, like, for example, sometimes and I know this may be sacrilegious, but I wouldn't watch Monday Night Football.
Mm.
I couldn't after Sunday, because at NBC Sports Edge we cover two games, one at 1 o'clock and then at 4 o'clock.
Mhm.
We write up blurbs for every single player in every game. Then on Sunday nights we podcast until pretty late.
So you're just toast.
You wake up Monday, and some Mondays I was still raring to go,
Yeah.
but other Mondays I would wake up and I'd say, "Oh, dear Lord, I need a break."
Yeah.
Like, I need to chill out. I need to read a book. I need to listen to music. I need
Mhm.
to do something non-football. Well, here we go again with the non-football. If I was a football expert, I would only do football. I'm kidding,
Right.
but uh, and so learning how to manage that has been key.
Yeah, and I'd say that applies to people in every area and every type of job. Like, right, if you're in something and you're giving it your best, there's a
Yeah,
tendency for burnout. So you have to find a way to recover. That's a good general learning. And certainly, if you're doing side work and writing books and all that kind of stuff, I mean, your brain has to stay, fresh to some degree to be effective at any of that. So
that's right.
that's good advice. Something I've asked every expert, kind of the last question, then we'll kind of do a closing exercise here, is just we have a lot of, I would say the majority of the listeners to this podcast are people that are already playing, usually quite a few leagues, and they're interested in continuing to improve or move up. And so if our listeners, want to improve, I know that you're not, playing in buttloads of leagues or anything, but you have a lot to share as far as how they can improve because you're studying this every day. What would you say is one thing that could, help them improve their game or set them apart from the crowd as a player?
Not drafting scared is one thing, and I know that comes with questions. What does that mean? Like, what does it mean to draft scared? But I think a lot of people do that, and that's human nature to not so much reach for what you think will work or go with what you think will work, like, objectively, but go with what won't hurt as much.
Yeah.
Like, to not reach a little bit for the player who you love, right?
Hmm.
To say, "Oh, I'm not there yet. Like, we're not. I would be reaching like a half around here. I'm going to take this guy and hope my guy
Hmm.
is available next time." And guess what? He's almost never available at that time. So,
Right.
um, because if you love that player, probably everybody else does, or some people do at least. And so I think, trying not to draft like fear-based drafting is
Hmm.
something that I see a lot. And back when I used to run draft day consultants, it was something I saw all the time, is people being like, I can't go with this guy. I want to go with the safe guy, the safe guy. But in this parlance and this idea, it comes from the industry, from the fantasy industry itself, where for years, we as an industry have dubbed players safe when they are actually not safe, when
Mm,
they're actually the opposite of safe. We used to say that about Andrew Luck, about elite quarterbacks going in the first and second round. I remember you take the safe guy and you wait till later to do this and that and that. And that wasn't safe. In fact, it
right.
was a huge risk, a huge
It just
risk.
meant lower upside, right?
Right, right. So evaluating what that means and avoiding that sort of fear-based approach is important.
Yeah, yeah, that's great advice. I think regardless of what level you're playing at, drafting confidently is super important, and obviously you're going to do that better if you're really studied up and you know what you're doing. But yeah, even if you're kind of a newbie, drafting confidently is way better than taking a guy like you're saying because you think you're supposed to.
Right.
So that's
Yes,
really good.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Don't yeah, have conviction. I mean, if you're a casual player, whatever, probably if you're listening to this, you're not a casual player. You're a fantasy head, which is fine. I am too, but and Kevin obviously is as well. But have some conviction, like you've done the research, like you've done a lot of studying, you've done a lot of reading and thinking about things, listening, watching. Your brain is full of really good information, so be confident. Draft your team as if it's the right way. And I know that sounds funny, and it applies to DFS as well. Like build a lineup uh, as if it's correct.
Hmm.
Don't hedge. I guess the hedging comes when the fear creeps in.
Right. Yeah, I've talked with a few experts about just like the groupthink kind of idea, where you're on Twitter and you maybe
Oh
have
yeah.
your rankings and you have them. Hey, this is the guy. These are the guys I like. These are the guys I'm targeting, and then you hear people talking about another player. Like we were talking with one person about Cooper Cup and Robert Woods, right? Like, I was one person who had much preferred Cooper Cup from the beginning of the season, and I early drafts drafted him over Woods, and I remember a lot of people, like, I'd post my draft boards and a lot of people were like, oh, Cup over Woods, that's a weird take,
That's curious.
and I'd be like, well, I just like Cup. And over time, though, by the end of the season, I was drafting Woods over Cup, and a lot of times that stuff will just creep in and you're like, well,
Hmm.
maybe I'm wrong, and yeah, maybe I need to hedge this. And yeah, I think it's really good advice just to go with your gut, stick
I've
with it.
I've done that too. Look, I've done. I mean, the gut approach always sounds like the opposite of the head approach, right? Of like using your brain and using your knowledge. But honestly, a well-informed gut
Right.
is what you're going for.
It's based on study first. Yeah, it's not just total gut, but yeah, go with what you really believe after you've done your study. Yeah, that's good. So let's close out with an exercise here. Just looking, we both looked at some wide receiver twos from last season. I kind of extended my search, up to maybe like the top 30 receivers, both in points per game and how they finished overall points, and just kind of looked at who of these players. I don't know, if your list was just limited to 12-24, but whatever. Who of this list do I think has potential to jump up to being a top 12 wide receiver one this year? So we can just trade off, or you can throw a few people out, however you want to do it.
Yeah.
Who's one person that you think of?
Yeah, Terry McLaurin, and I know that might sound funny because Carson Wentz has not been great, but McLaurin really is like an alpha receiver. Nothing really broke right for him in 2021. Taylor Heineke was absolutely horrific downfield. He completed 32% of his passes of more than 20 yards, the sixth worst mark in the league. No
Wow.
quarterback had more interceptions on downfield attempts in 2021 than Heineke.
Hmm.
And only three receivers in the league dominated air yards on their team like McLaurin did
Yeah.
in Washington. And I think he will continue to dominate those opportunities. Wentz, for all his shortcomings, and he has many, he is actually like a halfway okay downfield
Mhm.
thrower
Yeah.
and way better than Heineke. So I think that's huge for McLaurin. I could see him easily being a top 10 receiver.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That I have been feeling like Wentz just really negatively about him. Like, this guy is terrible, and it's interesting to think back. Like, he was the number 2 overall pick, and when he was early in his career in Philly, he was seen as a potential MVP of the league. He almost won in that year that he got injured. So the talent's there. I mean, I think he's regressed, but I think that he's got a lot of potential. And you're right. I think he almost certainly will be better than Heineke was last year. I actually looked at McLaurin and I thought about it, and I thought, Wentz. That was my thought. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously you'd want Russell Wilson or something, some sort of massive upgrade. But Heineke was low key horrible in
Yeah, yeah.
2021.
It's easy to look past that, isn't it?
Yeah, and McLaurin suffered because of it. I watched. I'm not film dude or anything, but I did watch a lot of Washington games, and the staple of a Washington game is Terry McLaurin being open downfield and having to make either a miraculous catch, body adjustment type catch, or just being underthrown or overthrown
Yeah.
by a severe margin. So that I think that changes in 2022.
That's a good call. Yeah, one guy on my list was Jalen Waddle. I think he's showed everything you can show as a rookie last season with kind of meh quarterback play. I think he's a ridiculous route runner and he's got the speed. We didn't even see him work downfield very often last season. He was almost like he was one of the lower ADOT receivers in the league. I don't know if that's because Tua isn't. I don't know. We saw him throw downfield in college, so I think he's got the talent to do it. I don't know. Maybe it was just a coaching decision, but I do think we're going to see him kind of pop even more this season. What are your thoughts on that one?
I mean, the way Mike McDaniels talks about Jalen Waddle, it'll be impossible not to draft him. I mean, it's PPR wise, he could be an absolute monster in that Dolphins offense. And yeah, he was on my list as well. I think until we get further information, I think top 5, top 6 is in his range of outcomes for 2022.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Who's another one on your list?
T. Higgins, and it might be weird because I know it's not like he was bad, but he was inconsistent in 2021. Higgins, for a while there in the middle of the season, I don't know if you remember, he was more reliable and more dominant. He seemed to be taking the wide receiver one role away from Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
For a bit. Didn't end up that way, and I don't expect that to flip next year. But T. Higgins had 35% of the Bengals' air yards last year. That was just a little bit less than Jamar Chase's 38%. He had a Whopper, which is weighted. I forgot the weighted average of a player's target market share.
Yeah.
And you can find a further explanation of that at RotoViz if you're interested. But T. Higgins had a Whopper of 0.6 compared to Chase's Whopper of 0.63. And then there's this, Cincinnati really changed the way they operated their offense later in the season. Bengals had the 7th highest neutral pass rate on early downs in the final 6 weeks of the season. That's compared to they ranked 18th in that category in the first half of the 2021 season. So I think that was to partially protect Joe Burrow and as he recovered and got comfortable with his knee. And then they really let him off the chain in the final month and a half of the season. If they continue that sort of approach next season, I think it's huge for T. Higgins. I think both Chase and Higgins could be wide receiver ones.
Yeah, that's my big question. I definitely believe in the talent of Chase and Higgins. Maybe not equally. I think Chase is a little more talented, but they're both excellent receivers. My big question is, will the Bengals throw, let's say, 60% of the time on offense? I mean, they have shown of the last few years that they kind of would like to be a power running team too. So it's like which one ends up working out. I would love to see their defense kind of stink, so they have to throw it.
Right.
Yeah,
I would too. I mean, it seems like with Chase and Higgins and Burrow, you just go ahead and you throw it.
You would think, yeah. I mean, Mixon is good too, but and the thing is, they did just get two new linemen, offensive linemen, in free agency, and they may draft another one. So we'll see. I mean, I think even if their offensive line is ridiculously good, if I'm the coach, I still want to chuck it because I've got those guys. But
look, a good offensive line could be great for Burrow.
Right.
I mean,
play action game.
Yeah, it could provide. Yeah, right. It could open up play action. It could provide more time for Higgins and Chase to get downfield. I mean, think about the last play of the Super Bowl where Chase dusted Jalen Ramsey on the sideline. If Burrow had one
Right.
more second in the pocket, then the Bengals are Super Bowl champs.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I'll let you go again. I don't want to take your guy. Anybody else you had on the list?
Yeah, sure. I had Metcalf, DK Metcalf.
Okay.
Um, he was like he fell out of fantasy relevance at some point this past year, which is pretty unbelievable for a guy of his profile. But his 28% target per route run rate was 5 points higher than Tyler Lockett's, and it was a huge jump from his 17% target per route run rate in 2020.
Hmm.
So he commanded a much higher uh, share of targets per routes than he did in his breakout 2020 season. I think the Seahawks running the fewest plays per game,
Right.
and B, Russell Wilson's finger injury that really, well, first of all, it took him out off the field for a month, and then when he returned, he was a disaster for 3
Right.
weeks.
Hmm.
I think that really sunk Metcalf's prospects, and I'm not breaking news here, but
Yeah.
it
Also, they just insist on running the ball so much too.
yeah, and you know what, that could happen. But talking about Metcalf's Whopper, it actually went up from 2020 to 2021. Like he was better in that category. So all the peripheral stuff points to Metcalf being perfectly fine for next year.
Right. Yeah. One other guy. Well, I have a few guys on my list, but one other guy I did want to mention is CD Lamb. It's kind of a no-brainer with him probably being the clear number one on the team. They did re-sign Gallup, but Cooper's gone, and they may draft somebody, but Lamb is just going to be the alpha there. I don't know that they're going to be as successful in offense as people think they should be. I don't know if Dak will ever become like an MVP candidate to the degree that people thought, but CD Lamb certainly has shown his talent. He's been inconsistent. He's dropped a lot of passes. But I think just purely on volume and his talent, I think that he is likely to jump up into the top 12. Any thoughts on that one?
We had the pleasure of talking with CD Lamb at the Super Bowl.
Hey,
He came on a Good Football Show, and we asked him about the Dallas offense, and he made no bones about it. He said, we need to be more aggressive. I want to be more aggressive next season, and I hope that somebody listens to him. It would be nice if
yeah,
the Dallas coaching staff listened to their best player and said, okay, let's do it, because that would be tremendous for his fantasy value.
yeah, yeah. Just a few other guys I had. Any of these guys you have? DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, Devonta Smith, Elijah Moore.
I didn't have them. My last guy. Well, actually, I had Waddle and so those are my four. Devontae Smith, fine, solid player, really good player. The type of offense that they'll
Yeah,
likely run in Philadelphia is not going to generate enough opportunity for him to be wide receiver one, and that's okay, because you can probably draft him as a low end wide receiver too.
yeah. And I was thinking DJ Moore. Maybe if they get Deshaun Watson, he could jump up in there. Certainly has the talent. Yeah, Elijah Moore and Darnell Mooney, all those guys are probably don't have a good enough offense, like you're saying with Devonta Smith.
Yeah, I mean, Moore was on his way
Yeah,
last year, and I'm sure you remember. It was like, oh, it's happening. For
Mhm.
the first month of the season, it was like, finally, the DJ Moore breakout is here. We can all sit back and just relax and enjoy it as it happens. And then as soon as we sat back and relaxed, it all went to hell. So, yeah, he's an unbelievably efficient player. He can dominate intermediate routes. He can dominate downfield routes. With
Sam Darnold, that was the problem.
yes, with some sort of quarterback
Mhm.
there. Yeah, look out for DJ Moore as a high end wide receiver one. Honestly,
Yeah, very cool. Well, that was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for taking
yeah,
the time to go through those and for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. It's great to see you and interact face to face. I hope to. I know you're down not too far from me. I hope to come and have a beer sometime. And
sure.
before we sign off, what was your Twitter handle so people can find you?
At CD Carter 13 on Twitter. Feel free to follow and then unfollow quickly. Uh, but yeah, no, and I'll be writing off season stuff for NBCSportsEdge.com. I do a good football show, like I mentioned, which you can find anywhere podcasts are found. And yeah, Kevin, thanks so much for having me on. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, and Good Football Show is a really good football show. I do listen to that one. You guys should check that out if you haven't yet. Thanks so much for listening. A few quick requests. Please subscribe to the pod. Please rate and review the pod. Share it with your friends, or if you're a fan. If you're not a fan, then just keep it to yourself. Please support the pod over at Anchor so I can keep it ad-free as long as possible. Thank you again, Denny. Make sure you're following him. I appreciate everyone listening. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, man.
All right.